I'm waiting for the signal from heaven.
Well, Mayor, I could say the prayer and maybe it'd help. Oh, there we go.
Okay, it looks like it's on. Welcome, everyone, to North Ogden City Council. Meeting will now come to order. Please mute your cell phone so that we don't have any disturbances during our meeting. Appreciate your attendance here this evening and the opportunity to share your feelings. We'll begin our meeting by an invocation and pledge of allegiance by Council Member Turner.
Our dear Father in heaven, we're very grateful for this opportunity we have to come to be in this free country, to be able to come as a residents and a city council to discuss the city and its needs. We pray, Father, thy Spirit may be here, that we may be able to discuss openly and frankly and be kind and genuine to each other. We're very grateful for this community and this beautiful area we live and our wonderful neighbors. And we ask you to please watch over those and bless those whose hearts are pained and that need assistance. And pray that we may be instruments to help those in need. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Will you please rise and repeat the Pledge of Allegiance with me? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Meeting is now open for public comments. Please state your name and address as you approach the podium.
All right, Stephanie Casey, 2444 Barker Parkway. Today, with the first thing on the agenda being training on the Open and Public Meetings Act, I felt it was the appropriate time to again publicly request the minutes for the Amphitheater Design Committee. This committee consisted of Mayor Taylor, Councilmember Cheryl Stoker, Lynn Satterthwaite, City Attorney Administrator John Call, Parks and Rec Director Tiffany Staley, Weber High Theatrical Director, Architect Team, Wadman Construction Team. I first publicly requested these meetings on December 18th of 2018 at a city council meeting. I was then told there was no need for that committee to be public or to have minutes. I spoke with Annette after council meeting was over. The conversation ended with her asking me to email her my timeline I had of the amphitheater. I sent an email with a very detailed timeline as requested. I received no response, not even an acknowledgement that that email had been received. This for me is no longer about the amphitheater. It is about the treatment I and my neighbors have received. We've been called many names, perpetuated and often instigated by elected officials. We have been told it was all public and that we were just not involved. How dare we question? Was this committee illegal, breaking the Open and Public Meetings Act? This committee decided the design of the new amphitheater, and at this point cost taxpayers over $3 million and has a stage that sits 450 feet from my house. Tonight with Brent Bateman here for training on the Open Meetings Act, maybe we can publicly clear up this issue. Was the amphitheater actually designed behind closed doors? Is my grammar request.
Okay. I have not gotten an email.
I sent it to you in December.
Last December?
Last time we discussed this.
Thank you for your comment.
Melanie Barker, this isn't working. Melanie Barker, 2524 Barker Parkway. I too am concerned about the open and public meetings for the amphitheater. I know they didn't happen. And in the information I read for the Open Meetings Act, it specifically says if tax dollars are spent, notes must be kept and they must be open meetings. There were no open meetings. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on our agenda.
Sorry. Melanie Barker again, 2524 Barker Parkway. The discussion to sell the 2550 Basin property sale, one of the things was that the city would act as the developer. That's what the city did when we purchased our property to build our homes by Barker Park, and the city failed us miserably. Please do not act as a developer.
Thank you for your comment.
Mayor, can we get the mic plugged in?
Is it not plugged in?
No. It's not plugged in at all. That's why it's not working.
So now everybody has to repeat. Joking. Just joking.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2, Training on Open and Public Meetings Act. Our presenter will be Brent Bateman. He's a lead attorney in the Ombudsman Office. Pleased to have him with us this evening. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you.
Besides
Thanks for
the good name that
invitation.
you have.
Yeah, seriously, go Brent. I appreciate the invitation. Microphone appears to be working now just fine. Thank you, John. My name is Brent Bateman. I'm the lead attorney in the Utah Office of the Property Rights Ombudsman. I don't need to give my address because I don't live here. However, I am very glad to be here. And I'm glad to be able to take a minute and talk about the Open and Public Meetings Act. It appears from some of the comments that we're going to have a lively discussion, but I am still going to try to keep this as efficient as we can. I do not like to waste my time. I do not like to waste other people's time even more. And so let's try to roll through this. Now, a couple things. First of all, just to introduce myself, I work for the state government. I am an attorney. Yeah, I know working for the government, being an attorney makes me the worst form of human life, but I actually really love my job because I get to protect the property rights of the citizens of Utah, and there's a lot of ways I do that, and one of the ways I do that is I come and do speeches like this and presentations like this, right? You all need to have open and public meetings training every year, and if you've been on the council for any length of time, this will not be your first one. If you're on the planning commission before you came to the council, you've had this. Right. So you're going to find that my presentation is a little bit different. We're going to hit on, don't do that. We're going to hit on all the important points. However, I'm going to try to stay as relevant as I can and not waste your time with things that aren't relevant. Okay. So the best way I know of to do that is to start with a brief discussion about the principle here of the Open and Public Meetings Act. Considering the comments we had, that feels like a very good place to start. So here's the thing. When I was practicing law, privately practicing law, I found that the worst part about practicing law was clients. They do nothing but get in the way. They do nothing but stop you from being able to get anything done. They are difficult, they obstruct, they're a pain, but you need them in order to go forward. Well, it's a great temptation, and I'm not saying anything specific about North Ogden City because I don't know what's happened here, but it's a great temptation, I know, in a lot of government situations to have the same attitude about citizens. This would be a lot easier job, wouldn't it, being on this council, if it wasn't for the citizens. And they're getting in the way of things, and they're complaining about things, and they're saying things like, you need to fix this, and then you say, in order to fix it, it'll cost you $1 million, and then they'll say, you need to cut taxes and not charge me $1 million, and it just becomes a big mess. If we could get a lot done if it wasn't for that. Well, we have made a choice in this state, and that choice is that we are going to do this the hard way. In the interest of openness and fairness and plainness. Thus, we have the Open and Public Meetings Act. That's what the point of it is, okay? And so everything I want to discuss from now on, I want to discuss from a standpoint of erring on the side of openness, erring on the side of caution. I get asked a lot of questions about this, and I get asked a lot of questions of, can we do this and not violate the Open Public Meetings Act? Can we do that and not violate the Open and Public Meetings Act? And it's just a good idea to just avoid that question altogether and just err on the side of openness as often as you can, because that's the policy behind this act. Okay, That's my rant to start with. You folks who are sitting up here on the stand and all you folks who are involved in the city government here, I just got to thank you. I got to thank you because you took on a hard job and you took it on voluntarily. And it's a hard job because of the things you have to deal with and the names that you get called and stuff like that sometimes. And sometimes there's great things that happen and sometimes there's difficult things that happen, right? But you folks took on this job. Why? Because you want your city to be a great place. And you want to be able to help that. You want to be able to do something. You want to take action about that, right? This right here, in this room, is where the real government hits the road. It's where real government happens. I don't even care what they're doing in Washington, right? Or even in Salt Lake, okay? What happens in this room is what affects people's lives every day. And kudos and thank you to you guys for being willing to do this. You just don't get that kind of, you just don't get thanked enough for the kind of stuff you do. So, let's go ahead. Open and Public Meetings Act, click. No, that was the laser. Click. What was that? Nothing. Click. There it is. Okay. The Open Public Meetings Act, like I said, what they've decided is they've decided that the public's business should be handled in public, okay? As government, we exist for only one reason, and that's to do the public's business. The public as a whole has things they got to do. They've got to create laws. They've got to plan things. They've got to move the city forward. That is all the public's business. The whole point of being here is to do the public's business. Well, we've decided, as I said, to do the public's business in public. Okay? The first question is, does the Open and Public Meetings Act apply to me? I don't spend a lot of time on this because the answer is yes here, right? Obviously. You guys are the city council. The Planning Commission, it also applies to them. Why? Because you guys do the public's business, right? Now, there was a question asked a little while ago about a committee, right? Anybody who does the public's business, who have authority to do the public's business is the public body, and the Open and Public Meetings Act applies to them, okay? What is doing the public's business? Well, it was mentioned a few minutes ago, but doing the public's business is being able to make decisions on the public's behalf, spending public money. Those are the kind of things that make you a public body. And if you're a public body, you do the public's business, and if you're doing the public's business, the Open and Public Meetings Act applies to you, right? Anyway, there's just no question. As the city council, does it apply? Absolutely. I mean, there's just no question. When does it apply to me is the next question. When you have a meeting. And so that begs the question, what is a meeting? A meeting means convening of the public body with a quorum present, including a workshop or an executive session for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon any member over which the public body has jurisdiction or advisory power. Anytime you have a public body, a unit of a group of people that have the authority to conduct the public's business, anytime a quorum of that body is present, for the purpose of discussing, notice discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter over which the public body, you are having a public meeting, and that needs to be open under the Open and Public Meetings Act. Every time. Again, you need to err on the side of openness. If you're not sure, open the meeting. If you're not sure, open the meeting. If you're not sure, follow the Open and Public Meetings Act. If you see each other at the grocery store, that's not a public meeting. The act does not apply. If you see each other at church, that's not a public meeting. If all members of the city council get together for a barbecue, that's not a public meeting. Even though the quorum is there, you haven't gotten together for the purpose of discussing, receiving comments from the public about, or acting upon a matter. However, you need to be careful about that, because if you're all there and you start discussing business and stuff like that, you're in serious danger of violating the Open and Public Meetings Act. Simple as that. Any questions about that?
I have a question, Brent.
Yeah.
So what, when you say a public body, is there a definition of that or an understanding you have of what that means?
Yeah, there is a definition of that in the act, and I didn't copy it because It's usually not a question when I'm talking to the city council, because like I said, the answer is yes. But there is a definition. And the summary of that is, as I said before, are you conducting the public's business? Are you spending public money? If those kinds of things are happening, you are a public body.
So I guess what I'm wondering, so like if the mayor and the staff department heads are meeting, is that a public body?
Well, no, because you don't actually have authority to conduct the public's business, right? I mean, there was a discussion here a few minutes ago about a committee, and I don't know anything about that, okay? But, you know, as a city council, you might create a committee anytime, right? And the committee might be the committee to discuss the fire code or discuss the feasibility of putting in a sewer or whatever, right? That committee is a public body if they have the ability to spend public money. Okay, if they have the ability to actually make decisions, right? But if the committee's job is to just go and fact find or to put together a plan and then come back here, right? Because they don't actually have the ability to make a decision, right? That committee's not a public body.
So, okay, so you're saying like department heads can talk about stuff, but if it's coming to the council, it wouldn't count? Or if a committee was talking about something and bringing it back to the council, that wouldn't necessarily qualify?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Right, but if the council were to put together a committee like a Parks and Recreation Committee and said to the Parks and Recreation Committee, you guys have $1 million, go spend it. When that Parks and Recreation Committee get together, they're a public body. Because they have the authority to conduct a public's business.
So Brent, could you, just for,
Hi.
I'm over here, for the residents and everybody, what's a quorum
Well, it depends on the particular public body, okay?
in our city?
I don't know.
Five council members and a mayor.
That's what your quorum rule is? You're allowed to set your own quorum rule. You're allowed to decide what a quorum is.
So in our city, it's three council members, correct? So, I mean,
You'll have
that's
to tell
correct,
me.
right, Brent? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's-
John.
You have to tell me, if you don't have a rule about it, it's a majority. Once you have a majority, so if you have five, and there's no five people on the public body, and there's no rule, then three is a quorum, right? But you can set a rule where a quorum has to be 4 out of the 5.
Okay.
You can do that. You can set a rule where a quorum only has to be 2. You can do that. But as soon as the quorum is present, that's when, bam, you're meeting, you're having a discussion as a public body. And the follow-up from that is obviously, if you don't have a quorum present, right, you don't have the authority to do the public's business. Without a quorum, you can't take a vote, right? You can't spend the money. You have to have the quorum. But you can discuss things, okay, right? Because you're not having a meeting, right? So is there any harm in 2 council persons getting together and say, what do you think about this? Well, I think we should do this. Well, that's a good idea. Why do you think that? Those kinds of things, no, that's not a problem. Because you're not having a public meeting. The public meeting happens when there's a quorum present and you got together to discuss it and do the public's business. That's the meeting that has to be open and has to follow the act.
So just one more question now, maybe you'll discuss it. These things.
Yeah.
If I text everybody on the council and we discuss something, is that something that's because technically it's a quorum, right?
Yeah. I mean, according to the definition of the Open and Public Meeting Act, okay, it depends on, are you together, right? If you text somebody something, right, that's not really covered by this. It's not really covered, okay? However, that is one thing where I tell people to err on the side of caution, okay? Assume if you're sending a text to everybody, assume that text is going to be discoverable. Somebody's going to be able to get it. Okay, but right now it's not. If you send a text to everybody on the quorum and everybody in the meeting, and everyone sends a text back to you, right now that is not a public meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Good question. Any questions out here?
Can we?
Sure.
If you,
I said you
if
can.
they do text messaging between each other and make a decision, isn't that a public meeting? And how are we as the public going to find out about it?
They cannot make a decision unless they're in a public meeting and vote. They have to vote. So they can text message with each other and say, how are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? How are you going to vote? But that's not a vote.
I can't decide decide what the objective of the open meetings, because it's now, what you just said to him was it's discoverable and people can get it. It makes it sound like we don't want it discovered, we don't want people to get it. So is the objective here to protect the people doing government, or is the objective to protect those that bear governing?
You already know the answer to that. I can tell from your question. Right?
Well, I'm a born cynic.
It's okay.
So
You're allowed.
if there's someone that's not,
You're allowed. Obviously, it's to protect the public. Okay, they don't need protection. And that's why I told them, right, that they should, if they're gonna do that, they should assume that it's discoverable. If there's a question, is this an open public meeting or is this not? They should treat it like an open public meeting. You need to err on the side of caution. You need to not be looking for ways to get out of the Open and Public Meetings Act. You need to be looking for ways to get into it. The more things you can do to make that apply to you, the better the government is gonna run. I say this to people all the time, and I hope, sometimes people take this as an insult, and you shouldn't. Because I really do mean what I say about local governments being a thankless and extremely difficult job. But you need to remember the reason why the Bill of Rights exists. We all believe in the Bill of Rights. We all love it. It exists to protect people from government, right? The government can't take away my guns. The government can't tell me what religion to believe. The government can't tell me how to talk, right? That means that the Bill of Rights exists to protect them from you. And so that's just something to keep in mind whenever you're working with government. It's just that's a way to behave. Now, having said that, wow, in my job do I see and receive a lot of questions and complaints about people who say my rights have been violated by my local government, right? And that perception is there, okay? The vast majority of the time, that's not true. People think that that's happened, right? But it really hasn't happened. It's more often that people don't understand exactly what their rights are, right? But the right to an open and public meeting is a right that people have. To the government conducting their business in the open is a right that people have, and that's why you need to err on the side of caution of that. But if there's any question going forward about whether or not the city or whatever has violated a person's rights, feel free to call me, because I'll tell you. I tell people all the time, no, they haven't violated your rights at all. I give you my number, you can put me on your speed dial. Any more questions about this?
Question?
I just clicked it.
If that's all right.
You're supposed to ask before I click. Yes, of course, it's all right.
If you want to unclick, I'll ask.
None of you are good.
So this will be hypothetical, but it was real, and it's hypothetical because I can't remember the details.
Hypotheticals are always real.
So the council convened in a public meeting and made budget decisions to improve or to do overlays on 5 different sections of road in the city.
Okay.
It gave them a budget amount. The sections of roads were outlined by the Public Works director, and the council voted and said, "Go ahead."
Mm-hmm.
So now, following that meeting, the Public Works people that know roads get together with potential bidders while they put out a request for quotes, and then they get in a meeting and discuss the details. And on occasion, a council member has been in those meetings. I'm one of those. I think most of the time there was only one council member. So they're making decisions about who to award the contract to. They're making decisions on details about dates and how wide, the chip and tar and all those kinds of things. Is that considered a public meeting?
Do you have a quorum of a public body?
Do not.
Then no, it's not a public meeting. You have to have a quorum of a public body, right? The public's business took place in the open meeting when they said, we're going to spend this money on roads, okay? The details of how to do that, right? That's part of the authority that they've delegated, right? But they've actually taken the money, they're the ones with the checkbook, and they've taken the money and they've written a check, right? Now, as far as the details and the attorneys had to call each other and work stuff out and everything, all that stuff is doable, and that's one of the reasons why you have to have a quorum for it even to be a public meeting. Right? So that you can work out those details without having to have a public meeting for every single step of the way. But the public business was actually done at the beginning when they delegated that money out. And the rest of it was, I mean, it's totally fine to go that way. Good question. Can I click now?
Good.
Okay, good. Okay, notices for public meeting. Just going to go through this really quickly. What notice must you give for a public meeting? And this is any time that there's a public meeting, okay? Annual notice and a meeting agenda. That means that a public body that meets regularly has to give annual notice of when its meetings are. So, like the city council will say, we meet every fourth Tuesday of the month, right? And an additional notice when the meeting comes up with an agenda that has to be published 24 hours before the public meeting. Has to list the details of what's going to be discussed with reasonable specificity. The agenda today was a good example. Has to be done 24 hours, and then there's how do we notice. Okay? Requires all of the following. Posted as, I don't like to read PowerPoints, guys, sorry, but this is the nature of the beast here. Posted as a written notice in the place where the meeting will be held, posted on the Utah Public Notice website, must be given to at least one local general circulation newspaper, a local media correspondent. It does not have to be published in the newspaper. It just has to be given to somebody. And the newspaper can throw it away if they want to. But you have to give it to somebody. The Utah Public Notice website is the wave of the future, folks, citizens especially. Keep your eye on that. A lot of people don't even know it exists. Keep your eye on it. So a lot of this was for you, Annette. Anything new here that's right along the lines of what you do all the time, isn't it?
When I post to the Utah Public Notice website, I have something that they always do. They list all the newspapers throughout the state, and I've already clicked on our local one, so they automatically get it. when I
Dandy.
post.
It takes care of that so fast, so well. Beautiful. Okay, any questions about notice? If you have an open meeting, you must take minutes and recordings. You must record your meetings and take minutes, or you have to prepare minutes at least. What is the official record of the meeting? What's that going to say when I click on it? The official record of a public meeting.
Written one that we approved.
Written minutes that are approved. Correct. Let me go back. Those are the official record. The video is not an official record. It is a record, and you have to keep it, and you have to post it, and you have to allow people to view it. But it's the approved final minutes that are the actual official note. There's a lot of details here. I don't know if we need to go into them. I would kind of think that we don't. This is a lot of details mostly for Annette and John and these guys who have to do all these kind of clerical stuff. But the bottom line is you need to post the recording. You need to post the minutes within certain time frames after the meeting so that the people can see, and whether they were here or not, can see what the public did, the public body did. Any questions about that? All right, I like to rip through this. Written minutes of an open meeting shall include the substance of matters proposed, discussed, or decided by the public body, which may include a summary of comments made by members of the public body. May include a summary of comments. Doesn't have to. May. All right, closed meetings. This is a big one. This is the one that everyone always asks me about. How do you hold a closed meeting? What do you have to do to close a meeting? Let's see if John is teaching you guys the right doctrines here. How do we close a meeting? Say we wanted to go into a closed meeting right now. What would we do?
You're asking me?
No, because,
You make a
Ask
motion.
Phil.
You asking council?
yeah. Or anybody.
Make a
Make a
motion
motion.
to go into a closed meeting for a specific purpose, being the competence and character of an individual, pending or imminent litigation, or the,
Real estate.
real estate, yeah.
Yep.
The,
Those are the three most common.
the sale.
There's
and-
more than that, but those are the three most common. And do you have a vote on that motion?
Yes.
Yes.
How many people have to vote?
Jordy.
You need 2/3 of the quorum to go into a closed meeting. You need 2/3 vote to, it's not just a simple majority, it's a 2/3. You cannot take action in a closed meeting. I assume you guys know that. That means you cannot vote. You can discuss, but you cannot vote. And here's the list of reasons why you go into closed meetings. Like you just said, an individual's character, professional competence, reasonably imminent litigation. Please don't just go into a closed meeting and think it's okay because someone has threatened to sue you. If you haven't heard from their attorney with an attorney threat to sue, you probably are not in reasonably imminent litigation. And also, going back to individuals' character, professional competence, or physical and mental health, be careful about that. Because just because you want to talk about somebody behind their back doesn't give you a right to go into a closed meeting. You actually have to discuss things that are relevant to the reason why you're discussing them. Character is only relevant if you're hiring them for a job that requires good character, stuff like that. Allegations of criminal misconduct, security personnel, strategy versus real estate, and many others that probably do not apply in local governments. You must still record your closed meetings. Why? Anybody know why we still record our closed meetings?
Litigation.
What happens in litigation?
They want to know what happened in the closed meeting.
But it's closed.
It's still public,
Uh-huh.
and for litigation, because if they come back and they sue you
Mm-hmm.
for what you said, or the purchase you made, or whatever,
Uh-huh.
that's the proof, that's the, what's the word I'm looking for?
Evidence.
Thank you. Who said that?
She did.
Everybody raise their hand. Evidence
Good job.
to justify, one, the closed meeting, and the steps that they took.
Well done. And who gets to hear that?
Now, I'm not a lawyer, so, but I would imagine just the lawyers,
A judge.
to begin with, and the judge.
Yeah, the judge gets to hear it to decide if it was done properly and, if any rules were violated. So,
And then can order the portion of the closed meeting that if there was a violation to be open.
yeah, which I don't think happens very often. Have you heard of that happening very often?
Not that I'm aware of.
Very rare. But they can do that. So that's why. So very good.
Thank you.
Nicely done. Any questions about closed meetings? Do we have them often here? No?
Not recently.
Recently.
Okay. Very good. Well, be good. Okay. Other topics, electronic meetings. You can have electronic meetings. You have to notice them as an electronic meeting, and there has to be a central location where the public can attend. So you can't just have an electronic meeting by text, or you can't have an electronic meeting where everyone is at home. Okay, you have to have a base. You have to have a place where the public can come and listen to and participate in the meeting in order to have an electronic meeting. Emergency meetings. You can hold an emergency meeting, and being an emergency meeting, that would waive some of the notice requirements, but it better be a real emergency. Okay, I have heard of places holding an emergency meeting just because they didn't get the notice out on time. So we're going to call this an emergency meeting because we didn't get our notice out. That is not a reason to hold.
You don't have special meetings on here.
What's that?
A special meeting.
What is a special meeting?
I need it.
So if there's an extra meeting the council adds to we'll do the same notice,
Yeah.
3 or 4 days and hold an additional meeting.
Oh, that's fine. Additional meetings are fine, right? You meet every other Tuesday or something like that, and you decide to meet every Tuesday for the next month because there's so much work to do. You can do that, but you're still subject to all the notice requirements, right? What emergency meetings do is they get you out of some of the notice requirements because you have to meet now. We have to be able to do some business now. We could go into the details of that, but I find that they're rare, and going into the details is not worth it because if you need an emergency meeting, you're just going to have to call John and have John look it up and make sure that it all happens. And note that there are penalties for violating the Open and Public Meetings Act. Intentionally and knowingly violating the Open and Public Meetings Act is a Class B misdemeanor. That's a criminal violation. Intentionally violating the Open Public Meetings Act. So here's just a list of local government common violations of the Open and Public Meetings Act that I've seen a lot. And, I just make this list so that people will be aware of these kinds of things and not do them, okay? Closed meetings without members of the public body voting first. In an open meeting to close the meeting. Conducting closed meetings for reasons other than those ones that are allowed. Taking official final action in a closed meetings. Failing to properly provide notice of a public meeting and holding site visit public meetings. Holding site visit public meetings is actually totally fine, but you still have to notice them. You still have to do everything. You still have to open it to the public, which means that if someone wants to do a development and you want to go out there and you want to see it, and the whole council wants to go out there and see it, that's an open and public meeting. Notice it, notice its location, and welcome the public to come and view the site with you.
We did that a couple of weeks ago. In fact, I think there's a couple of members of the audience who went with the planning commission on a field trip.
Very good. And you made sure that the notices all happened and everything.
The location was kept secret.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, I guess this location was secret.
Yeah, well, see, that's a great example of what I'm talking about. And again, I'm not criticizing anyone.
We'll stay on that.
I'm just saying, err on the side of caution with open and public meetings. You don't want to mess around, right? Not having the public swarming all over somebody's front yard, I can understand the reason for that, okay? But when you're doing something like that, you don't want to be looking for ways to get out of these requirements. You want to be looking for ways to comply with them, okay? That means that if it's a visit that you don't want the public to know where it is or to be there, just make it so it's not a public meeting. Just go alone. Go without a quorum. And come back and discuss it later, those kinds of things. I mean, there's ways to do this, but look for ways to comply with the Open and Public Meetings Act. That's my training. Like I said, I do it simply. I try to do it as relevant as I can, and I try not to waste time. Any questions?
Right here. I have one. I was waiting to see if anyone else did. This can go back to this hypothetical meeting. No, it's not hypothetical. The committee that was discussed, how do we know if it was, I'm sure some of us are going to say it wasn't an open meeting and some aren't. I have no idea. That was before I had any aspirations to public office.
I know, right?
Right.
You learned your lesson, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I should have stayed uninvolved. So if there were, correct me if I'm wrong, 2 council members, a mayor, they discussed, they didn't build, they discussed plans.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they spent money. I don't know.
We have
money was
technical
done on council.
reviews
Mhm.
all the time.
Right? And, yeah,
That's not, and sometimes there could be 2 council members there and a mayor, but particularly that was really a technical review. They were going over things that could be done, but they were brought back to the council.
okay.
I have a
So-
question on that.
What?
Yeah, because when it was brought to the council, it was a done deal.
Yeah, there was
That's what
no
we were
approval
told. We
before
had
that
no
committee.
input. It was a done deal when it was brought to council.
There was no meeting approved
Okay.
where that money was
You need,
approved
you
to
need to
design that.
you need to understand a
amphitheater.
couple things, okay? We're talking about what violates the Open and Public Meetings Act, okay? We're not talking about, other methods or systems of the way things should be done, or the processes of the way things should go, okay? The question is, does this violate the Open and Public Meetings Act? It is not uncommon at all to create a committee and have the committee go and sit down and make plans and put together a budget and put all these plans
Spend
together.
$4 million.
And then come back to the council and tell the council what to do, what they think they should do.
Yeah, I agree.
And the council makes the decision, okay? Whether or not that should have been an open process, whether or not people should have been able to have input on that, I mean, that's a completely different question than the open and public meetings question. Okay, just because there was other ways to do it doesn't mean the Open and Public Meetings Act was violated, just because there was other and maybe even better ways to do it, right? It's a question of, and again, it's a little bit different than what we're talking about being able to make decisions about things and being able to make plans and who's the contractor we're gonna have, and we're gonna enter into this contract and stuff like that. Those are not the question, okay? Should they have done that? Maybe. Should they have involved the citizens in that process? Maybe. I'm not gonna gainsay it, because I don't know any details about it. But you gotta understand, we're talking about the Open and Public Meetings Act. Was that violated? Okay? Was it violated? Did that group have authority to do the public's business? Did that group have authority on their own to spend public money?
I don't know if they did, I believe they.
Well, I have a question then.
Uh-huh.
The open public meetings doesn't even matter then, because we can just say it's just a committee making these decisions. And then we bring it to the council and they make the decision. So therefore, we haven't spent any money, so we can spend and do whatever we want.
I think your
That's
comment.
what I'm getting from this.
I think your comment of erring on the side of openness is
Mhm.
very important.
Yep.
As Mr. Bowler pointed out, I served on the Division of Alcohol Beverage Control, and I can tell you, if anybody even walked into a room where would create a quorum, somebody got up and left. So technicalities, we can argue those all day.
Mhm.
I like your comment, always err, if you have nothing to hide, why not invite the public? That's, I think, a good stance.
That is not only the safe principle, but that's the foundational principle of the Open and Public Meetings Act. Is conduct the public's business in the open. Now, as far as the details of what this committee was, that's not a question of whether or not there was a quorum there, because there wasn't. It's a question of whether that was an independent public body, and I don't know if it was or not. Okay? But committees like that are very common, and they're usually not independent public bodies.
Yeah, I'm not getting into the technical aspect.
Sure.
But
I
think-
appreciate your comment very much.
I think the council knew that that was a highly sensitive situation in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they did, once again, I don't want to criticize the council because I'm grateful that they serve. It's not easy. But once again, I think particularly when you know something is extremely sensitive to the community, the safe way is to involve it. And what does it hurt?
I agree with that statement. Absolutely correct. Any other questions or comments?
Well, that gets to be a real, a key element of all of this is if we take into consideration the fact that this council makes decisions, passes budgets,
Mm-hmm.
I think we underestimate the number of meetings that go on to implement their decision to
Mhm.
spend that money.
Mm-hmm.
In my experience, it happened all the time.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about lining a concrete pipe, or they're talking about what to spend the arts money on. Well, they've given them the okay to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And so does there need to be a lot of people to help them make that decision? I think it would be helpful. A lot of times we encourage and try to get people there. But I'm saying there's a lot of meetings that go on.
Sure.
That people in the different departments are given the okay to make the decisions. They don't spend the money. But the council, by their vote, has given them the authority then to So get a contract,
Mhm.
award a contract, make the decisions about the details.
I think that's an accurate thing to say, and you got to keep in mind too, you know, your city council, your planning commission, these guys are generally not professional government people. These guys are teachers and store owners and, you know, doctors and lawyers maybe sometimes, but these people are, they're not necessarily specialists in things. And so, like anybody, if you want to make the best decision, you're going to get advice from people who know, right? And you're going to send people out to find out. I need to know what to do about this. I'm not an accountant. I need to know how much to spend. I'm going to send people to find out, right? And they're going to come back and they're going to give me advice, and I'm going to listen to that, and I'm going to see if that feels right for me, and then I'm going to vote. I mean, that's how our representative form of government works in this country, right? It results in a couple of things. It results in flawed decisions. It results in mistakes. And it results in, and again, I'm not saying anything about this group specifically, it results in sometimes stupid things happening. But stupid is not illegal. It's legal to be stupid. You know, and I just say that as a joke, but I mean, it's, you know, there's a process, and the Open and Public Meetings Act is part of that process, right? But it's just that. It's just an attempt to make sure that all this is conducted in the open. But at the end of the day, these guys up here are just trying to do their best, and as long as they follow the principle that we've been talking about, the principle of err on the side of openness. Err on the side of openness. Don't look for ways to close the meeting. Look for ways to open it. Then they're going to be fine as far as the Open and Public Meetings Act goes, and they're still going to make decisions that some people are going to love and some people are going to hate. But that's just the nature of the beast. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Lynn. And I know you were on this committee that I clearly have a problem with. The problem is there was no vote in council or public before that committee was put together. None. That committee was put together. In a presentation, it says the design committee has been hard at work. What in the world? And then, you know, I mean, that money for, well, in October, you guys were deciding how much of that to do. But that was completely designed with no public input. And, you know, I have looked over the open house questions. I know what those are, you know, color, things like that. I mean, by then it was done. It was planned. There was no public process as to how big or the size of how that would be. So,
I don't think it's appropriate. This is not a forum for that back and forth. I'll be glad to talk to you about it.
Well, it doesn't
we're
matter
talking
anymore.
the
We have
Open
an
Meetings
outreach
Act,
process.
and I am questioning that. I'm sorry that it's public and you don't like that, but this is the best place to discuss that.
Okay. Anything else? Anything from you folks?
I have a question on Facebook pages and things like that.
I just turned around and faced these guys.
I know. But on Facebook pages that say they're North Ogden City and people are banned from them, how is that? Is that,
Facebook pages that say they're North Ogden City and people are banned from them? I don't understand what that means.
they block them, so they can't make comments on there? I
Yeah,
have been
that-
blocked from one because people.
Okay, well, let me.
Sorry.
No, I can answer that
Sorry,
question.
no.
I can answer that question. It's a good question. The answer to that question is that, remember a while ago I talked about how one of my jobs is to tell people what rights they have, right? And the fact of the matter is and this is non-intuitive, we don't think this is the case, but we actually do not have a right to make comments. The only time we actually have a right to make comments is if there's a public hearing, right? Which means that it's noticed and presented as a time for the public to speak, okay? That's the only time, right? If it's a public meeting, there's no right to make comments. Even if there's a quorum there, there's no right to make comments. There's no right to there's no right to send email comments. There's no right to send Facebook comments. You just don't have that right. And so if they want to receive some comments from some people and say no to some comments from other people, they have not violated anybody's rights. That's the answer to that question.
Yeah, why come?
So you can see what the government's doing. There are public hearings, like I said, and that's your chance to speak, right? But your chance is to see what the public is doing, right? I mean, again, I'm not saying anything. You guys, I don't have any bad feelings about you whatsoever. But what if they do something stupid, okay? And you come to the meeting and you see them do something stupid, what is your recourse? No. No, because stupid is not illegal, so suing them won't help. You vote.
You vote.
Once every 4 years, we have an opinion.
You vote. That's the representative form of government we have in this country. We elect people to go do our business. If we don't like the way they do our business, we vote for somebody else. That's just the plain way we do it. And so that's why you come to the meetings, and that's why we want the meetings to be open, is so that we know what's going on. And when we do have a chance to make a public comment, we do, right? When that's opportunity, when it's a public hearing, we have that opportunity to make the public comment, we do. Great, right? And we'll still send them some emails and stuff like that, and if they want to just click delete, they can, but if they want to read it and hopefully listen to us, great. That's all great, right? But at the end of the day, your recourse, unless what they've done is illegal, your recourse for bad decisions is to vote differently.
So our city is being generous in allowing comments before and after the meeting.
No, not in the
From what
open
you just said, though.
Yeah. They don't have to give you any public comment time in this meeting. They choose to.
Why do you, as people have to post it X amount of time before and all that kind of stuff? Because then they allow people to send something, maybe 24 hours, 2 days, whatever they get out there.
Sure.
Mayor, I'm not able to hear what she's saying. Can she come up to the microphone?
Can't hear you.
I can hear you, Julie. I got ear things now.
I know, I heard that. Okay, Julie Anderson, 940 East, 2600 North. My question is you say they have to post it, like 2 days before.
24 hours.
24 hours, excuse me. But they post it, and in 24 hours, we have the time to look through and see. But then we have, at that point, you can't come up, if they decide tonight, they're like, oh, we want to stop Julie Anderson, no more public comments. I know, I'm a pain in the butt to them. I'm just joking, guys. But basically what it does is they could say that. They're like, you know what, we're tired of public comments, and I understand why you would say that. So why post it 24 hours before? What does it matter?
It's the law.
Well, I know it. I understand it's the law.
I'll answer that question, okay? It matters for just the reason that you said, okay? So that you'll know what's happening, you can study on the issues, right? But to say that you have the right to come and comment on them is the same as saying that you have the right to vote on every issue. You don't, okay? I mean, having them know how you feel is one thing, okay? And they can ask you how you feel, they can have public comment, they can accept that or they can not accept it, okay? But that's not how we do things. In this country, we elect our officials to make our decisions, and we don't vote on every decision. You don't believe, I've been in these exact kind of meetings where there's a tough decision to be made, and the mayor said, let's have a vote. Who in the room wants to do this? Yay. And who says no? No. Oh, man. I just wish I'd been a practicing attorney when I'd seen that, because that's a guaranteed lawsuit win against the city. Guaranteed. Because that's just not how we do things.
That makes sense to me. I just wanted that clarified so that I understand how that works.
Yeah.
So is it not to provide transparency for the electorate to see how those people they've elected are operating?
That's exactly what it's for. That's exactly, it's so that you can see what's happening, you can see how they're deciding, you can see if they're deciding in a way that you agree with or not, right? So that when it comes time to vote, you'll know what to do. That's exactly what it's for. Now, again, getting public comment is a great thing, and good governments do it. Okay? And these guys are doing it twice in this very meeting, and we're taking up a lot of time with this discussion. But you just got to understand that that's exactly what it is. It's public comment for them to listen to and consider when they're making their decisions. That's all it is. It's not a vote. Can I turn my back on you now? Okay. I know some of that seemed pretty hostile to you folks, but I meant what I said before. You guys are doing a tough job, and no one knows that better than me because I've seen this all over the state, right? And you guys should be thanked again and again and again for being willing to do this. You know, if you guys are doing this to make money or be popular or stuff like that, I got to tell you, you made a big error. Okay? But I know why you guys are doing this. You guys are doing this because you care about North Ogden City. And you want this city to turn out good. And you want it to be a nice place. And keep doing that. Keep doing that. I can always tell how good or bad a place is run by how many phone calls I get about that place. Okay? I don't get a lot of phone calls about North Ogden, and you should be congratulated about that. That might change after tonight. But again, all I want to do is just to help you guys protect the property rights of your citizens, to help the citizens understand what their property rights are, so that good government happens, so that North Ogden is every bit as wonderful as you want it to be. Any more questions? Are we good? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brett, for your training this evening. Appreciate it very much.
One more question.
I clicked the thing.
You know, they're all dying to know, what's your phone number?
It was on there. Open
He put it up.
the slideshow back up. It's the next. There it is. There it is.
Don't sit down.
We'd like to make a little token of appreciation for your service this evening. Nice to meet you, and thank you so much.
Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween. Thank you all. Thank you all. Appreciate it very much. Let me know if I can do anything to help you. John knows me well enough to know that I will go through anything. Right? To help, right?
It's true. He'll even drive through northbound traffic to get here.
Okay, have a good evening.
Thank you, Brett.
Does everyone have the number? Okay.
Thank you for your discussion this evening. I think it's been good for everyone to understand the process of public meetings. And so appreciate all your questions this evening. Move on to number 3, major project discussion on the 2550 Basin property sale. Presenter will be John Call, City Manager, Attorney.
So council, this is not up for decision tonight, but just up for discussion. The idea is with the plan to move that pond, that property now is available to be sold, hopefully for commercial or other type of uses.